Welcome. I'm your host, Juliette Clark, and I'm really excited today. We have someone with an accent. How exciting is that? Wait till you hear her accent. So Kelly Glover she strategizes like a marketer, thinks like a producer, acts like a publicist, and negotiates like a manager. This winning combination makes sense since she has an 18-year track record working in media across radio, talent management, TV casting, and producing. In 2007, she published her first podcast. Boy, she was ahead of the curve back then, and went on to host her own syndicated radio show across 22 stations. She has since produced an award-winning array of podcasts at a network level, and she's known as the Podcast Publicist. She's a powerhouse behind the podcast PR agency, and the Talent Squad. Welcome, Kelly. Let's hear your accent.
Oh, Juliette, thank you. Hello. It's lovely to be on the show.
Nobody's ever said it's lovely before. I like that.
Oh, it's awesome. I'm so happy to be on the show. This is amazing. I can't do an accent. I can't pull it off. I've tried for years and it's the worst.
You can't do an American accent?
That was it. You just heard it.
That sounded like Australia meets Valley Girl.
See, told you. I told you. Hopeless.
I don't know if you're old enough to remember like the Valley Girls from San Fernando.
Oh, no, I do. I watched that movie with Gina Davis back in the day.
There you go.
I can't remember what it's called, but about the aliens in the swimming pool and Jim Carrey.
No, not that movie. No.
Yeah.
Now I want to go watch that movie. I'm going to figure out what that is. So we're going to talk today about media training for authors because authors write books. And then they want to go on TV, but they don't really know how. They don't know how to get the interviews. And once they get there, they kind of just barf all over everything. They don't get that there's like there are timing issues. There are things they have to be really trained for and polished. So how often when you're in an interview, first of all, how do you get those interviews? Let's start there.
Okay, so first of all, it's about being active instead of passive, and people are probably not going to come and knock on your door, so it involves pitching the media. And if you've written a book, then you are more than likely an expert in your field, so we trust that you know your stuff. Hello, you've written a book about it. So it's about, you need to break down who am I talking to, and break down the message of the book. Often a hint is in the chapters of the book. You can turn those into talking points. So it's who is my audience, what am I teaching, and what can someone do as a result of getting the message from my book. So it's not really about you as the author and the book. It's about the content and what you're teaching people. So what problem are you solving, which, is what the expertise of the book is about in the first place. So you need to break all that down and then get your assets in place. So a lot of it is about preparation. So a media one sheet, getting your pitch together, getting those subjects lines together, getting an online press kit together, having those headshots, having your book covers. It really is having those ducks in a row. That's even before you look for any media outlets whatsoever. Then you've got to find the media outlets. So who wants to hear the message, or who has an audience of people that I can teach whatever the thing might be. And then, so if you're looking, it could be TV, it could be online publications, it could be blogs, it could be podcasts. So think about where people go for the media. And then we can talk about the timing in a moment, but have you done much media in your experience so far, Juliette? Maybe we can use you as a case study.
So I've done a little bit. My experience has been that you have to take something that's relevant right now. So
yes.
some piece of your content, you can't just go out and pitch like, I have this really great book. They're not interested in that. They need to make it incorporated in a way that's relevant. So speak to that a little bit. How do you stay up and like pitch it in a way that is relevant to what's going on now?
Yeah, so that's exactly it. It's about the content of the book. I have written a book is not news story unless you're Oprah or a personality. Then the fact that the person has written a book is the story, because it's got to do with the person who is already newsworthy. So it would be, the first thing I would look at is the basic calendar of events. So is Thanksgiving coming up? Is Christmas coming up? Is it New Year, Valentine's Day, or Halloween? Or can you tie your content into a calendar event that happens throughout the year that we all know those hallmarks are coming. So if it's New Year, it could be, I don't know, like Marie Kondo would be cleaning out your house for the new year, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it was back to school, it could be how moms can deal with busy time getting the kids back to school. Or do you know what I mean? Like, so tying your book into something that's already happening. Or if it's a book for Christmas and New Year, it could be top 10 Christmas gifts for your daughter. Whatever it, turn it in, you make it work for you, but those are structures that you can pitch within because you know the media is looking for stories at that time. So those are the marquee events of the year. The other way, we call it newsjacking, is if something's happened today and your book ties in with that, then you present yourself, and that's why it's really important to have everything ready, because you need to go as soon as it happens. So an example of that would have been the college scandals with the Felicity Huffman back, not now, but back when it happened. So if you have, we actually had a client who talks about college admissions and SATs. So that was when we went, right, that's happening. That's the perfect time to go to the media. And he was on TMZ. And because he's the expert source, that wasn't through us, but he was the expert source that was available to speak at that moment on that topic. I say TMZ, that's a celebrity, of course, celebrity gossip to do.
I know. I was like, they have news on there, like real news?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's celebrity-based news. So yeah. And if it's tax season, you'd be an accountant and go out on the tax. If the tax laws change and it's not in tax season, that'd be a time to go out. So you always need to be looking for what's coming up and make sure you pitch well in advance or pitch in a timely manner. So for Christmas and New Year, they're looking for those. They know that's coming, right? So they're looking 6 months in advance. That's on the calendar. It's a set schedule. For the Felicity Huffman college scandal, that's out of the blue. So that is something that, newsjacking. So like, it's clinging on to a story that has just come up and making yourself relevant. Now, it's not talking about you or the book on either of those occasions. It's just being the expert who happens to have the book and it will get a mention. So it's still giving the value and your comment on the story, but they will mention the book, but you've got to tell them to mention the book. So yeah, there are systems and strategies in place to make the most out of it. And it's like, oh yeah, I saw that person. They were on TMZ. Oh, I saw that person. They were on, let's use the big ones that people know. Good Morning America. I heard them on a podcast. I saw them in a blog post. So that's what all the PR is about, is setting you as an expert, and you've got the book to back it up.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want you to notice something she said there. If it's a holiday or a timing 6 months before, don't wait until, I'm going to give you an example. One of our clients has a cookbook and she has mocktails in it. Don't wait until Thanksgiving gets here and, when they're going to be doing news stories about safety during the holidays, low calorie drinks. Don't wait until November, December. Go try to get yourself on 6 months in advance. Get yourself booked.
And also try to look for the white space, Juliet. So think those are the popular ones. So we have a saying in Australia, every man and his dog. I just realized that in America, it's like everyone and their brother, I think is the same.
Yeah, I think it's probably the same.
Yeah. So everyone is going for the Christmas one or the New Year one. What if you went for New Year's Day? What if you went for the day after Valentine's Day? If it's Valentine's Day, go for Single Awareness Day, I think they call it. You know what I mean? So sometimes go for the opposite of what maybe you've got a hangover cure and that's for the New Year's Day. Mm-hmm. So you can always look for the days before and the days after, and I call it counter programming. So go for the opposite when everyone's going for the other space, if you can, or if your book goes to that level.
Okay, so this is out there in left field. There's actually a singles awareness day. Like if you're single, aren't you aware of it? Oh my gosh,
there's a day for everything. Like it's one of those made up days, and I'm single. Let's put it out there. So yeah, but it's still a bit of a fun topic that media can grab onto. That's a little bit different. And if 9 people are going for the Valentine's Day, maybe be the one that goes for Single Awareness Day, and you might get pitched just because of the ratio. So it's thinking creatively, because it's competitive. Everybody wants to be in the media, so you've really got to think, how can I be different? What have I got? What's everyone talking about? And how can I offer something different? So at the Talent Squad, we say, what is no one else talking about but should be?
Okay.
And that's something to think about. What is everyone else already talked about and offering, and what can I say that's a little bit different? So yes, and then there's finding the outlets, pitching the outlets, what to include in the pitch. There's a lot to it. So you can do it yourself. You can have your assistant do it. You can have a VA do it, or you can have an agency do it. So depending on where you are and what your budget is, there's definite options. And then, of course, there's Harrow, Help a Reporter Out. So they send daily saying, and I think most people are across this, especially authors, that's from Cision. They send daily saying, hi, I'm a journalist and I've got a story about dogs. I'm looking for people to comment about dogs, and then you submit. So it's a bit like, it doesn't, if you submit and you need to take time to submit, but it's not a guaranteed, and you might get 1 out of, 5 or 1 out of 10 or 20, whatever it is. The ratio to is certainly not 1-to-1, but you can get and that's usually for written articles.
Okay. So with Harrow, just back up here, paid version or the free version, which do you think you get best results with? Does it matter?
I think for people, there are a lot more on the paid version, but it does cost a lot more. It's thousands of dollars for Cision. So I think that the free version is absolutely fine, especially if you're starting out, and then just get the runs on the board. I think most people just do the free version unless you're a public relations agency. And if you're paying for that money for Cision, you may as well pay a PR agent to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the honest opinion on that. And you can pitch publications directly. Christmas is coming. You know that everyone's going to do a top 10 books for the holidays, or top 10 summer reads, or top 10 entrepreneurs, whatever it is. So you can actively pitch yourself. So I think the key is being active instead of passive. Unless you're a big name, they're probably not going to come to you. So you need to go to them.
Okay. So you have podcasts, you book people on podcasts. Do you feel, personally, I feel like I have more leverage getting guest spots elsewhere when I have my podcast in exchange. How do you feel about that as a booking agent? Like, would you recommend that some of these experts have their own podcasts?
I would recommend that you do a podcast tour before you start your own podcast. And that way you can see how you like it, if you've got the longevity to do it, because the thing is that pod fade is a real thing, Juliet, as you know. So people you really need to be all in on a podcast before you invest. And I'm not even talking about money. I'm actually talking about time and mind space, because you can start a podcast for a really reasonable price, but the price of your time is a lot more than the cost of the actual physical investment of equipment and online software.
It is. And let me just, for those of you who don't know what pod fading is, it happens a lot. You start, you commit, you realize it's time consuming, or for a lot of people, they've just run out of things to say. And so they quit producing new episodes. So that's what pod fading is. And there's actually a whole industry now that goes out and tries to buy those old episodes. They're not really buying the episodes as much as they're buying the audience for those people. So it's becoming a thing too.
Yeah, I equate it to buying the gym membership and then not going, which I've done dozens of times. So you buy the gym membership, you're like, I'm going to go at 5:00 in the morning every day for the rest of my life. This is going to be amazing. You do it for a week and then you're like, never go back to the gym ever again, and you still pay the money. So yeah, pod fading is that gym membership that you don't use.
That is so weird, because I do go at 5:30 most
mornings.
Now that it's cold here, yes.
And you still have your podcast and haven't pod faded. So I think the equation works.
I think you can do. I think you can do both. Maybe it's a mentality. You're right. I still have my podcast. I still go to the gym. I'm an anomaly.
Do you listen to podcasts while you're at the gym, for the $100 question?
That's a great question. No, for the most part, I listen to audiobooks. So I don't read as much. I don't have time to read as much. So I usually listen to 5 or 6 books a month.
That was my next question. How many do you listen to? So 5 books a month. So you're listening to 60 books a year while you're at the gym at 5:30 in the morning.
Either that or
60.
I'm an avid hiker. So it might even be more than that. And I listen to them on 1.75. So when people talk in a normal voice now, I'm like, you're so.
Juliet, you're a machine. I'd love to like visit inside your brain for a quick download. There's a lot of information that you have.
That might be a really scary thing to get inside my brain. I wouldn't wish for that. So tell me about, I mean, you and I talked about this a few minutes before we got on. When you're on TV, you're there to be a source, not a salesman. Talk about that a little bit, because you and I know from the quizzes that I do that that's my point as well. You're not out to be sales. You're there to build relationships and educate and inspire and show them your expertise.
The first thing I say is we are all an audience. We've all watched TV. We've all read everything, right? So think about yourself as a viewer and what you think when you see people interviewed on TV and podcasts. If they mention the book, if they're really awkward, if they sound like a robot, if they're not dressed the right way, like start paying attention and doing little reviews of people on air and see what you notice. Sometimes you won't know what really pick up unless you're super paying attention what's going on, but you'll know something's not right or something's weird or you don't like them. So don't be that person. You really are there as an expert in your field, and you can intertwine your story and your book, but you're not there to sell the book or talk about yourself. You are there as a source. And if you are there as a source answering the question, just leaving everything on the table, the viewers are going to be like, wow, that person really knows what they're talking about. And you'll get invited back. Assuming it's not the college scandal that is the newsjacking, but you may get called upon as the source, because if you've done a good job the first time, they'll be like, right, let's get Juliet. She was good last time. She was ready to go, because they go back to people in the media that they know are going to be ready, that are going to give a good, concise answer, that we call it media ready, and that are available at the drop of a hat. So if you prove yourself the first time, and then they're likely to do the pitching and sales for you. Because if you've done a good job, they'll say, and Juliet's got XYZ book or XYZ program or XY. What you have to tell them what you want them to say, or let it be known in a good way. They will pitch you, and that is the best case scenario that you can have.
Okay, so I have done a little bit of media training, and the hardest part, I think, was you have a very condensed amount of time to get the message across. How do you train for that? And how long do you typically have? Because you really have to get it out and then mom.
So oftentimes television segments could be 3 minutes. And you've got to think about the host's intro, the host's outro, the questions that they've got. If they've sent it to you in advance, they might send a list of questions. They might get to 2. So you need to work on your sound bites. You need to be ready for anything and know that 80% of it probably won't get said. So soundbite is, you need to think of politicians. They are the best at sound bites, like them or not. They know their message. They stay on message. They get their sound bites. They'll say it in multiple times, possibly in little variations, because they know that when they get on TV, they're only going to pick one line, could be 7 seconds to 10 seconds, and that's the bit that needs to go on. So that needs to be perfect. So the sound bites equate that to your elevator pitch. And you need to, it really depends on the segment and on the show, but if you can get, it's inappropriate if you've got a 3-minute segment to pop that in 5 times plus your book mention, because you will never get asked back again.
Right.
So if you're doing it, if you've got that one chance, I would suggest, if you're new to it, just giving as much as you can and trying to get it in there, but always try to give first, because then you're more likely to have a second chance to get used to it. So at the Talent Squad, we say, practice in private before you go public. So practice at home on your laptop, just flip on the record button and practice to yourself. See how long it takes you, see what it sounds like, see if you can get less words in, see if you can say it a number of different ways. Ask a friend, family, colleague, employee to interview you, and get those runs on the board before you go on live TV, where you're sitting there looking down the barrel of a camera and you forget your own name, because it gets very nerve-wracking when you're in there, and if you're going live, if you're not used to it. So practice in private before you go public, and practice with those sound bites.
And watch sound bites on TV. It's
yes.
Since I've had media training, I actually can watch like a morning show or an evening news, and I can see when the host is getting nervous because they're trying not to be rude. and the guest is going over and they've got to cut. And, I've actually heard them say, we've got a hard break, we've got to go. And you should never be in that position. It's awful.
Yeah. And think about the medium, think about the show, think about the segment. Podcasts, half an hour to an hour, you can go on longer. There is no way in a TV segment I would be able to speak as long as I am now. They need to be 10% of what I'm saying and just short answers. Mm-hmm. And the host, they're going to, if they want more, they will ask more questions of you. And so I think the best way is to study the shows that you want to go on and the best people that are doing it, and pay attention to the worst people of what not to do. So you now need to be a student of media, paying attention to the people that you like and dislike, and then running your own little practice.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, I'm going to say something that a lot of people aren't going to like, but...
Oh, unpopular opinion. I love it. Bring it on, Juliet. Yes.
Okay. So when you go in and you pitch your book, you have to have something more than I'm an Amazon bestseller, because a lot of producers don't feel like that is a valid avenue anymore since it's been cheated. So how do you get around that and get yourself on?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't pitch the book whatsoever. I'd be pitching the content. I'd be pitching the subject, and I would be backing it up by saying I have a book, rather than going, I'm pitching the book, because you're not. You're pitching you're pitching the problem, not the person or the book. So what topics are on the show do they want to speak about? Because they don't want to they don't actually care about the book. The book is a backup of the person, which is a backup of the topic of the expertise. But I know what you're saying. Yeah, Amazon bestseller, I think it is now. I'm sorry, guys. Juliet is right. It's a bit of a so what, who cares, not a real thing, right, as far as the media goes. So, I mean, you can put it on there, but it's not, if you think that that's going to be, I've got an Amazon bestseller, I want to come on your show, you probably won't get a response to that email.
Right.
If the email is, I see you talk, I saw the Felicity Huffman college backer thing. I got 1400 on the SATs. I teach other people how to do that. I'm part of the problem, not the solution. I would like to come on it. Well, you wouldn't say I would like to come on.
I was going to say, what? I should be in jail too. No,
no, but the concept of like, I want to come on the show and talk about it and offer the audience a different opinion. I've just said that here, and that needs to be in here. Then that is more likely to get you on the show. And by the way, I have a book.
Yeah. No,
so that is yeah.
So I'm just bringing that up because you guys, I was actually at the media training, and a woman said that to the producer, and he snapped at her and sort of said, that's not a thing.
Like, I just said that's not a thing. Yeah. So they said the same thing. Yeah. I would put that, if you want to put it, if this is the email, I would have it down the bottom in a little line if you want to put it. And I probably for me, if I've got a killer cover, killer topics, if your pitch is good enough, you don't even need that on there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what did you learn at the media training? What were your biggest takeaways?
The media training that I learned, I learned about the concise message and keeping it short. And that's, by the way, it's really hard when you're nervous. Like,
yeah. Or a talker like me. Yeah.
I think your tendency is to ramble. I had no idea, like they taught us, how to look at that camera, and then usually it goes to a different. So they taught us a little bit about that, and mainly staying on message and doing it. One of my friends has a boot camp that she does like a half a day for it that I went to. But I think that hardest part was, you have to give your answers concisely when you're extremely nervous. And I personally, I'm kind of direct and to the point, so it wasn't as hard for me, but I saw people just ramble. Totally ramble.
But the benefit of that is that it's media training and it wasn't live on TV. So I look at that as a positive. If you're finding that out now, fantastic. Set up your iPhone at home, practice to camera, because you're going to notice all these horrible things that you hate about yourself. Let me tell you, you have like a nose thing, you have a lip thing, whatever it is, you move your hand weird, suddenly you look like an alien that you've never noticed before. Like so you learn to control your body, you learn to control your speech. Maybe you're hunched over, maybe you need to sit up straight.
I'm always hunched.
Maybe you need to sit in a way that feels uncomfortable but looks good on camera. Mm-hmm. And then you always need to go camera ready. Even if they say we're giving you full hair and makeup, go camera ready regardless, because sometimes that is not the case when you show up. And if your hair is crazy, if you're a curly haired girl like me, and you were thinking that they were going to do your hair and they're not, you're not going to look great on camera. So
Right.
always go ready. And there's the wardrobe tips of stripes, don't wear stripes, what colors to wear. So I would always be ready that you are going on Oprah no matter what it is, and you will always be at the top of the list because you are a prepared guest.
That's cool. The great information. So how do you take control if things go south? Now that we're on the rambling and, oh my gosh, my teeth look funny. And that was my thing is I noticed the camera angle. I was like, I need to go get my teeth straightened. My teeth have gotten crooked since I had braces 40 years ago. And, I was like on this tear and my kids are like, Mom, I don't even notice. Like,
no,
micromanage every little thing on there.
Yeah, let me say, there's nothing wrong with you in real life. It's just amplified on the camera. And when you're in a tiny little box, like, you're fine. There's nothing wrong. It's just for TV purposes. When you're on there, you're going to notice different things. Yeah. So please don't go out and get a plastic surgery. You know what I mean? It's just knowing what you're working with and knowing how to best work with what you've got.
My best.
So I think I noticed a lip thing. I was leaning for, like, I could notice. And what you notice is not what other people will notice.
Exactly. That's exactly what my kids were like. I don't even notice that. Why would you spend $5,000 to get braces again?
Yeah. So no one noticed that except you. So what we were saying about media messaging.
What do you do when things go south? Like, you're on there and all of a sudden, like, this is what I see all the time. I don't know how many of you guys watch Fox occasionally, but I see Kellyanne Conway and it's like, do you know who she is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So on and on and on and on. And it's like, like she's a communications person. She should know this. And I feel like she goes south all the time.
Yeah. So there's a number of things. If you're an author, they might even not have read your book. Chances are they probably haven't read your book. So therefore you need to go in knowing that. So sometimes you need to control the interview from the inside. If it's a 3-minute news segment where you're the expert, they're getting you to comment on stuff, you're not there for you. They're going to be asking the questions. It's going to be quick Q&A. You're going to be out of there before you knew what happened. And the only way you're going to know what you said is when you watch it on the replay. That's how quick it is. Mm-hmm. However, if it's longer, sometimes you need to ask and answer your own questions to get the message out that you want. And that is a skill in itself. And sometimes they'll ask you a question that you don't want to answer, or you have to answer your key messaging in a different way. So you can bring it back. So sometimes it's a recentering and bringing it back to the point. It could be like, yeah, that's a great question. And I'd like to go to these top 3 points on this. So figure out some little structures that you can work into your interview where it brings it back, and those 3 points happen to be your key messaging. Mm-hmm. So, or like, I'd rather focus on this area, or maybe not use the word rather, again, like that's perfecting it, but you get your own little way of doing it. Say, great question, and the focus on this area. Yeah. So then you can bring it back and you've got your key messaging in there, so you can kind of check it off the list and move on.
Okay. What happens when you're on something and they ask you something controversial around there that you really don't want to get into because you want to be asked back? How do you handle something like that?
I don't think you can't really say no comment, because no comment never looks good on right. on anyone, or avoid it. So I think that's when you redirect it if you can and see if they move on. For politicians, they're just going to keep poking holes until you get that answer. That's part of the interview process. Mm-hmm. But it depends what the topic is. If you're going on for a controversial topic, you need to be prepared to speak about that controversial matter. So I think it's on a case by case, but the redirection I think would be a good ploy. But or if it's something that you're not positioned to speak about and they're asking stats and you don't have the stats, don't make it up. Never lie. Don't make it up. You could just say, that's not a statistic I have access to, or something. Like, even think a better way to say it. So because that no one can disagree or argue with that, or saying you're not, you're making it up or avoiding the question if you literally don't have the statistics to back it up.
Great. That's really good. We have a client right now who is writing a book on a very controversial topic that she lived through. And we want to help people, but we don't want to revisit the controversy and have it attacked from all sides. So that's one of the things that just inside of her book, getting her ready for that to redirect those to, this is how I help people that have gone through this. I don't want to revisit that controversy.
So in that case, if the book is about that, it's written in the book there, and then anything in the book, and once you're a media person, anything is free game, right?
Mhm.
So she could pre-combat that by writing in her pitch, or if she not even in the pitch, when she gets accepted to go on the show, just making that known before the interview, because you don't want that awkwardness to happen on air. And
Right.
with a topic like that, it sounds completely plausible to go in with that. And then the outlet will decide if they want her on or not based on that. But I'd rather not go on a show than have them ask a question very personal live on air that she has to answer that she doesn't want to answer. So that's when, in that situation, that is clever, but she can redirect that as well. It sounds like, without knowing the details, that's an opportunity for her to redirect about, she could talk about other case studies. She could talk about the cause. She could talk about, it sounds like she could redirect without not answering the question and saying, well, that's something I've moved past. So
Right.
preface it, and then, because that is answering and acknowledging, the acknowledgement is very important. So and then no one's going to argue with that. If it's something horrible that happened to her, they're not going to make her prod and revisit that.
Air. Yeah.
But saying that's something that I've moved past, and in order to deal with, so she could come up with a little phrase to answer that and be prepared. So she knows if something happens and goes south, she doesn't have to worry about it, because she knows what she's going to say.
That's awesome, because that's what we in the foreword, we actually positioned it as, we understand there are two sides to this controversy. We acknowledge that this is not to get into that. This was my journey, and this is
even that. Say, I acknowledge people are really interested in this. However, blah blah blah, reposition. I'd like to, and then, so focusing on the top 3 blah, and then she gets her messaging in. So that's actually an opportunity to position, refocus, and get her messaging out from a question she wasn't even asked. So that's a golden goose to me.
Yeah, it's a good place. So Kelly, where can we find you if we want to find out more? And first of all, where are you? You're in Australia right now. You're in Sydney.
Yes.
So what time zone do you live in?
So it's right now, we're recording at 7:30 in the morning. So I get up at 3:30 when I'm in Australia. I start doing podcast interviews at 5 a.m. So it's good. And I describe myself, I'm a bird that flies south for the winter. I don't do American winter, too cold. I have an endless summer. So I'll be in Australia for the Aussie summer. Thank you very much. And back in the States, I usually go back January, February.
Very cool. So how can we get a hold of you if we want to find out more?
TheTalentSquad.com.
Okay. TheTalentSquad.com. Great. Thank you so much for being on today. That was a lot of really great information. And I'm sure that everybody out there loved your accent. And I want you guys to glean the most important part of this today. The biggest takeaway is that Singles Awareness Day, January 15th, and Kelly and I are both single. So email her. She'll tell you where to send her a gift for that day. Email me. I'll tell you where to send me a gift for that day.
Yes, Juliet, yes. We're both single and available. Thank you very much. Single Awareness Day. It's every day for me. I don't know about you. Anyway.
Pretty much. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Juliet. It's been a pleasure.